Welcome to week 3 of English 125 at Ashford University. This week, as usual, you have 2 discussions to complete and also a written assignment. Your first discussion is going to be another reflection on the week's readings, and what they want you to do is to identify at least one major similarity and one major difference between the forms of the short story and the poem. How do these differences between these 2 literary forms affect how you read them and how you respond to them? So in your response, you're going to include an example of at least one poem from this week's readings, and you're going to describe the connections between the poem's form and or the use of literary devices and your experience of the poem. So that will be one paragraph. Then in another paragraph, you'll describe your reading experience, and you'll want to look at the key literary terms listed in the textbook, things like alliteration, rhyme, iambic pentameter, etc. And if you'd like, you can also compare your experience of the poem to your experience reading a short story shares with poem a similar theme. So as usual, your initial post has to be at least 200 words and posted by day 3. Responses to your classmates have to be at least 125 words in length. One of the purposes of this course is to practice our writing, and so this is part of that task. We need to practice our writing. The second discussion that you'll be doing this week continues on the theme of poetry, and this time you're going to actually listen to some poems. We Real Cool and My Papa's Waltz. These are poems that demonstrate the importance of performance, rhythm, and musicality in the poetic form. You can also find a recording of some other poem from the course readings and describe your listening experience of that poem instead. But if you do choose this option, make sure that you provide a link to the audio of the chosen poem. Now, every question that the discussion prompt asks should be a separate paragraph in your posting. How did hearing the text recited aloud compare to a silent reading of the text? That's one paragraph. Did the performance in any way add to or detract from your experience of the text? That should be another paragraph of your response. Did the performance change your perception of the poem or its content in any way? That should be another paragraph. You have to support what you say with textual details and analysis. It's not enough to say the poem was good, or the poem was great, or the poem was interesting. You have to explain why it was good, why it was great, why it was interesting. And in the course of your discussion, you can include how specific literary techniques or devices contributed to your experience of listening to the poem. As always, initial posts have to be at least 200 words, and responses to your classmates have to be at least 125. This week, the week 3 assignment is going to be a rough draft of a larger paper that you're going to turn in week 5 of this course. Now, in this paper, you're going to compare and contrast 2 literary works from this course that share the same theme. There's a list of themes and corresponding works in the week 5 final paper instruction. So what you need to do is go down to week 5, click on the final paper link, and then those instructions will come up. If you scroll down, you'll find a list of themes and corresponding works. Note you're choosing only 2 of the works within your selected theme. So let's say you want to write your final paper on country lovers and you're comparing and contrasting that with Walker's The Welcome Tea. Or you want to compare and contrast The Secret Life of Walter Mitty with The Story of an Hour. Or you can pick one of the other topics, but make sure that the 2 works that you pick occur within the same categories. Do not compare Dog's Death with Collins's You Reader. Those are from 2 different categories. You won't find much similarity between those 2 works. The works that you compare and contrast must be within the same category. Please read the direction. You're only supposed to choose 2 of the works within your selected. Ultimately, this paper in week 5 is going to be about 10 pages of analysis. You're comparing and contrasting 2 literary works from this course. It has to be from this course, and you're supposed to use the works that are listed below. Now in week 5, the paper will be about 10 pages in length. For week 3, it won't be quite that long. It can be from 6 to 10 pages. Now, first, as always, the first paragraph of your paper should be an introductory paragraph. You have to provide an introduction to your paper. This introduction should tell us what two works you're going to compare and contrast and what areas of comparison and contrast you're going to make. The prompt for this assignment lists the types of things that you're going to be comparing and contrasting. So you're going to be comparing and contrasting content, form, and style. These sorts of things you need to mention in your thesis statement. So you're going to compare and contrast, say, a poem of Frost with a work by Eudora Welty. You're going to compare those things with respect to content, form, and style. And then your thesis statement also should contain the argument that you're going to make about these two works. Paragraph 1 of your paper has to be an introductory paragraph, and the last sentence should contain your thesis statement. This is the main point of your entire essay. Your thesis statement needs to tell what you're going to talk about and what the results of your analysis are going to be. You need to pick two works from the list that we talked about. You're going to be comparing and contrasting them in respect to content, form, and style. As always, your paper needs to be in APA format. At the bare minimum, your analysis has to be at least 6 pages. Those 6 pages do not include the title and reference page. The first page of what you submit will be the title page. Then you will submit a minimum of 6 pages of analysis, and then the last page of what you submit will be a reference page. Also note that you have to use at least 6 scholarly sources to support your thesis. One of those sources can be our textbook for the course. The other have to be at least 2 sources from the Ashford Online Library, and I would really suggest that you get all of your sources from the Ashford Online Library. It's really too risky to do a Google search for your sources. Wikipedia is not permitted. Yahoo Answers are not permitted. Cliff Notes, Spark Notes, Shmoop, any of those sorts of things, those are not scholarly sources and must not be used in this paper. Make sure that you're using APA style. 1-inch margins all around. Times New Roman 12-point font. Double space your text. Also note that, as mentioned above, the title page is completely separate from the pages of analysis. The reference page is completely separate from the pages of analysis. Anything that you take from somebody else's head has to be cited, otherwise you're committing plagiarism. So all sources must be properly cited. If it's in the body of your paper, it has to have an in-text citation, and then there has to be a full bibliographical reference on the references page. As noted above, you have to have an introductory paragraph that contains a thesis statement. You're going to have multiple supporting paragraphs after that, and then you're going to have a concluding paragraph. This is going to sum up the entire paper and provide the reader with further food for thought. The Ashford Writing Center has a number of examples of papers that can help you, and so please check that out. There are a number of excellent resources there. Also, make sure that you look at the grading rubric to see what you're going to be graded on. The content of your paper, are you comparing and contrasting the content in each of these works while developing compelling and creative connections between the two? This is 25% of the grade on this paper. Form of your comparison and contrast. Are you sufficiently comparing and contrasting the form of each literary work? That's another 25% of the grade on this paper. And then another 25%, are you expertly comparing and contrasting forms of each literary work while developing compelling and creative connections? So this is another 25%. The rest of the paper has to do with written communication, or is what you're writing appropriate for an academic paper, and what you're writing, syntax and mechanics. Are you spelling words correctly? Is your grammar correct? Your analysis of the paper, that is about 2.5% of the grade. APA formatting is 5% of the grade for this paper. Page requirement is 5% of the grade for this paper. And then your resource requirement, have you used at least 6 scholarly sources to support what you're writing? So make sure that you read these directions very carefully. This is a comparison and contrast paper. You're picking two works that we deal with the same themes, that come from the same group on literary theme. Good luck on this week 3 paper, and I hope this helps.